Hello friends, this is Praveen and today the topic of discussion is soil. Where are the soil uses? The soil is help in the growth of the plants and trees. They Many insects lives in the soil. Soil is used for making the potteries and the handicrafts too. So it's important to learn about it. First, we have the formation. How is the soil has been formed for the from how much years? So first, the rocks present on the earth was a big huge clumps or the stacks of rocks, bigger than even a dinosaur or an elephant. So these has been very big rocks found on our earth. Then how they have been formed into very little pieces? This is because of the weathering. So what is a weathering? A weathering is a process of breaking down the solid particles just like rock into fragments. Rock is not necessary sometimes. The rocks also are not necessary for sometimes. Also some material could be weathered or break down. Then we have the weathering is done by the three parts. It's a physical change, physical weathering, chemical weathering and biological weathering. First, physical weathering. Physical weathering, in this the non-living things or the abiotic things participates this weathering, just like the heat or the cold or the frost action help in the breaking down of the rocks. When there is very much hotness, there brings a crack into the rocks, and sometimes when it is very cold, then also it breaks the cracks or the make the rocks to break into the fragments. Then chemical weathering. So what is a chemical weathering? A chemical weathering is a weathering in which it is done by some chemical come together to form the rocks into pieces, which converts the rocks into the soil. Then we have biological way, in which microorganisms living in the soil helps in the breaking down of these rocks. They hollow the rocks, and when they done by the frost action, they could break easily. So these three, physical weathering, chemical weathering and biological weathering, is the important parts of the weathering which helps in the formation of the soil. So these soils do weathering in the different types of the stages. So let's move to the stages. There are major three types of stages. First, when the rocks were huge, the rocks which were not broken down, these were called as the first stage. When the rocks were not any breakdown by any of these action, they were a big huge or clumps of the rocks. Then in the second stage, what happens? The rocks were somewhat break down. Not most of them, but some of them were break out. Then in the third stage, all the rocks, not all the rocks, but rocks are broken down into the further more pieces, which we now called as a soil. So there are three parts in the first stage, in the third stage, second stage and first stage, which helps in the. If you go even deeper in the earth, so you will find the large rocks which has until not been the crushed or weathered until. This is because when the rock is broken into fragments, it's deposit and helps it compress, and when they go more even below the earth's surface, they again form the magma and then come out and then form the solid part. But the weathering is also It takes lots of months, lots of years to do this. So let's move to the factor affecting the weathering or the formation of the soil. The weather affecting the formation of the soils are climate. As we see, the different varies of the climate or the weather can change into the weathering. So if there is a moderate climate, not much of harsh climate, just like a very hot or very cold, the process could take long time. But when there is a harsh climate, just as a hot deserts or even a very cold seasons, the weathering would happen faster. Landscape also have a work on the weathering. If a rock is at a mountain and the gravity is pushing it down, when it will roll, the rocks would break into the fragments. So, although it would be done by the wind or the gravity or even the water or animals and plants. Then we have the nature of a soil. If the soil is very difficult to break, then it would take more time than if the soil is less. So depending on the density is the density is the volume it covers in a unit. So that is a density. Volume that covers in a dense unit is called density. So it depends on the density, nature, or the if they can break or not. Then we have the profile of soils. What is the profile of soils? The profile of the soils is the different types of the soils or the rocks found on our earth if by cutting by an horizontal way. Just there first here grows many plants here, so their roots extends and microorganisms lives. These profile is divided into horizons. The first horizon is called horizon O, then horizon A, horizon B, horizon C, and horizon D. In horizon O, this is a very thick layer. This is a very thick layer which has humus, which has humus in it. This has a very good fertile or nutrition which helps the plants and the animals to live in this region. So the most of the airs are present in the O horizon and the A horizon. The second horizon is called the top soil. Horizon B is called the subsoil. Horizon C is only called the horizon C, but horizon D is called bed rock. The topsoils, the roots of this ends in the topsoil. Most of the animals, insects which are living in the soil lives here mostly in the topsoil, because the air is about that much present, that much of in the ground. This is much more than the humus. The humus is very less or very thin, but this also contains the nutrients. This also contains the nutrients, but not that much as the humus contains, and these nutrition would decrease as we go in the center of the earth. This would decrease. Then comes the subsoil. This contains very small pieces in the humus, but then gradually bigger, somewhat bigger than the humus in the topsoil, and then somewhat more bigger than the topsoil, and the size of the soil or the rocks also increase up to this length. The most big rocks are until found in the bedrocks, which is very big shafts found in the ground. And in the sea horizon there is also some rocks, but not that big as the D horizon, which is the bedrock. So you could understand how we divide the horizons of the soil depending on the different types of the properties of the soil found in the each range. So you can see here, less plants and animals, no plants and animals live in the C and D horizon. Some very few plants and animals, insects lives in the B horizon, which is the subsoil. So let's move to the composition. The composition of the soil. The soil composition means what kinds of the materials or the things the soil is made up of. The soil is made up of the ingredients just like the air, water, organic waste, minerals. So minerals play a most important role in the soil. They make about 44% of the soil. If I take up the soil here and divide this into equally halves, then 44 of this would be covered by the minerals and the 6% is covered by the organic things, just like the plants, animals, mostly it covered in this, so it's organic material. It's contain organic material. Then we have left with a 50%, because 44 plus 6, this is 50, and we are left with 50. 50 of them, 25 of them is covered by air, and rest 25% is covered by water. Water is also present in the soil. So we have 44% minerals, 6% organic things, material, 25% water, 25% air, which total gives us 100%. The percent which means the 100. If you take 1 gram of the soil, there lives about billions of bacteria in there, according to the scientists. So let's move to the types of the soils or types of the soil form. That we can classify all the soils in major 3 types. These include sandy soils, clay soils, and loamy soils. First, let's visualize all these 3 soils. First, if you zoom in the sandy soil, what you will see is a huge balls. All of these are made up of the balls, but balls of the sandy soil is big as big as a football. There is not, if we do zoom in or we use microscope to see them, they are bigger. If we take the same microscope without changing its degree, so the clay soil would appear to see some less soil. So it would contain big balls, just like football balls, and this would contain small balls of the soils compared to the So this which contains large one is called sandy soil. Sandy soil, and this is the clay soil. So clay soil. So as you can see, the more if you use the football to build up a cubic, you will see it has more space between them, and if you will pour the water, it could easily flow through them. But building this a cubic with a ping pong ball or the small size ball would lead to the very small spaces, and which very small spaces which will contain more water. So in the sandy soils, the water could easily flow through them, but in the clay soil, the water is present on the surface, and it needs lots of time to the soil, water to completely evaporate. So if a ground is made up of the clay soil, it would the water or the by the rainfall it is wet or the mudded, so it would take more time to dry up compared to the sandy soil ground. Then loamy soil. If I have taken some particles of this, some particles of the sandy soil and some particles of the clay soil and mix both of them, I got up a loamy soil. This soil has both the features of this and that. So this has could pass the water but more slowly than a sandy soil, but faster than a clay soil. So if you take up the ground again, so in the clay soil the ground would get dried up more time compared to the loamy soil, and then which is compared to the sandy soil. So let's move to the properties. The properties of the three types of the soil. There are other soils which are classified according to three. Just like the desert soil is a sandy soil, clay soil is the examples are the black soil, red soil, just like that, and loamy soil, just like another you can see, just like the lateral soil. So let's move to the properties. Properties of the soils. First, absorption. How much water they could absorb it is called an absorption of the soil. If we take up a three containers containing the sandy, clay and the loamy soil in each, you will see if you will pour equal amount of water in that, the sandy soil would pass most of its water at the surface compared to the loamy soil, and which is compared to the clay soil. Most they are in the series. The sandy soil will pass the most, then loamy soil, and then clay soil. They are all in the series. By the thing. So this if you pour any water, limit of the water, but the water should be equal in all of this. Then we have the moisture in which water already available to the soil without observing it. So this can also called a humidity in the soil, which makes the soil feel warm, cold, or the moderate in temperature. These also vary in the same sequence. Then we have a percolation rate. Percolation rate is the if we take up three pipes of the same diameter. The same diameter is an important, and push them three into the three different types of the soils and pour an equal amount of the water in all of three, and we see there that large mark the water levels, and then we see that which soil the water to go the fastest. So first is the sandy soil, then is the loamy soil, and then is the clay soil. This should be measured. If you will measure, then there is difference between all of three. If you take up a different diameter, then this timing could be changed. Because the diameter helps the more soil and which would easily pass through the soils. So we have completed the properties of soils. Let's move to the soil erosion. So soil erosion. So what is soil erosion? The soil erosion is the removal of the top layer of the soil. When just like this is a mountain which rocks are eroding, and it's take water and air erodes the first layer and deposit into the sea. So this is called a soil erosion. This is mainly because of the trees being cut down. This is because of the soil trees majorly cut down, because the trees helps the strong grip with the soil to not to flow away with the air, water, and this effect. So to prevent the soil erosion, we have to grow more and more trees, and a technique of farming which is done is called a terrace farming, which is grown on a mountain by the cutting of the hair, which is in the series here. Here are trees which helps in the stopping the soil which and tight gripping of the soil. Next we have the soil pollution. Soil erosion was one of the pollution of the soil erosion. Soil pollution. So what is a soil pollution? A soil pollution means adding a harmful substances or the making a natural thing in the useless or using it in the most amount could lead this soil the material to damage is called the soil. Is called a pollution. So soil pollution. Soil pollution using, or we are now cutting out the trees and growing more grasses on which we face the cattle for eat it, so we can do our domestication. This is one of the major types of the soil pollution. This what happens, take up or all the nutrition and make the soil barren. In what is a barren? A barren is a type of a soil in which this soil is useless. Nothing can be grown on this type of the soil. So nothing can be grown on this type. So to prevent the pollutions, this is mainly done by the throwing the garbages also inside it, which leave their bacteria grows and which eats most of the nutrition and which harm the soil. So to prevent the soil pollution is to grow more and more trees. So let's summarize what we have learned today. We have learned about the formation, how the soils have been formed for last few thousands of years ago. This is because of weathering. Weathering is a process by which the rocks are break into the fragments. There are three types of the weathering: physical weathering, chemical weathering, and biological weathering. In which physical weathering, in which non-living things take part, just like biotic things, just like heat, cold, frost actions. In chemical reactions are done and to make the rocks or break into the fragments. Biological is done by the by microorganisms living in the ground or the soil, which hollow up the soil, hollow up the rocks, just like that. Then we learn about the stages. What are the different types of stages in which rocks were broken down? The most of the rocks were broken down in the First there were more rocks in the third, which were not broken down in the third stage, then second stage, and then the first stage. Then factors affecting the soils are climate, landscape on the where they lives, and the nature or how strong is the soil is. Then or the how strong is the rock is. Then we learn about the profiles. The profiles of the soil is divided into horizons. Horizon O is the humus, which is the topmost layer. Then horizon A, which is the topsoil, which lies between the horizon O and horizon on B. Then comes the horizon B, then C, and then D. Horizon A is called the O is called the humus. Horizon A is called the topsoil. Horizon B is called the subsoil, and horizon D is called the bedrock. Then we learn about the properties that the nutrition decrease when we go below the earth, and the size of the rocks increase when we go below this on the downwards. Then we learn about the composition, that 44% makes up the minerals, 6% makes up the organic materials, 25% air, and 25% the water. If we divide the whole of the earth or the earth soil into less time. Then we learn about the types. There are 3 types of the soils, which are sandy soil, clay soil, and loamy soil. Then we learn about the if you zoom in, what you see in the sandy, clay, and the loamy soil. The sandy soil is made up of the footballs. Clay soil is made up of some very small ping pong balls, and loamy soil is a mixture of a sandy and a clay soil. This is depends on the transfer of the heat from the transfer of the water. If in the sandy soil it transfers the most, then the loamy soil, and then the clay soil. Moisture is also present mostly in the clay soil, then loamy soil, then is the sandy soil. Then we learned about the properties of the soil, which is absorption, the water which the capacity of the water they can absorb it or they can keep with it. Then we learn about the moisture, the already present the water inside them or these soils. Then we learn about the percolation rate, in which the same diameter of the pipe we dig and put up which the water flows in the more. Then we learn about the soil erosion. What are the soil erosion? Then what causes it and what could prevent it. Then at the last but not the least, we learn about the soil pollution, in which what are the causes of the soil pollution and what could prevent this. So friends, I hope that you like this video, and at the last, thanks for watching.